Every day, we're bombarded with health headlines, trending supplements, and conflicting wellness advice. So, how do you know what's fact and what's just the latest fad? Join holistic health and functional medicine experts Dustin Strong and Dr. Scott Vrzal as they break down today's biggest health topics, separating science from speculation and providing practical insights to help you make informed decisions about your health. This is Truth or Trend, the Holistic Breakdown.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Truth or Trend, the Holistic Breakdown, where Dr. V and I take your questions and certain health conditions and products that are out there, and we kind of flip them around and look at them from different angles for you all. Today's episode is inspired by a conversation I recently had with a friend of mine who told me she wanted to get genetic testing for certain things that would increase fibroids in her body. And so our inspiration from that is to help people understand everything else that you may be able to do to impact fibroid formulation, really understanding what fibroids are, why they're forming. And if there is a genetic piece, once you learn about it, then what, right? That's the whole thing. So now we know we've got this gene thing, and that's always going to be what we're going to want to share with all of you. If there is somebody out there who's concerned about a genetic single nucleotide polymorphism that they need to change their life around, we want to make sure that we're giving you actionable things that you can do, some insights. And today, after both of us took a little, it went through the files in our brain on fibroids, I think there's a few interesting things that may not have appeared on other people's initial thoughts in fibroid formation that we're going to talk about today. So I'm pretty excited to share all of that with you. And Dr. V, you created some slides, didn't you, as well?
I did.
Everybody?
I'm laughing inside because today it's a couple of dudes talking about chick problems, huh?
No. Dudes can get fibroids too, okay? So,
all right.
And in fact, that's just what it is. There's a rare condition called Reed syndrome, and it does affect people within a family. And if you are going to get that genetic test and you really want to know, but then what is what we're trying to say, right? So
right, exactly.
We actually put together, I created a checklist that just to kind of help give people an organizational thought approach to fibroids if they're having concerns about fibroids in general. And so I'm going to share this with you. If anybody out there who you want this sent to you, just email my office, info@strongonhealth, and we will get this sent over to you so you can use this for yourself clinically as well. But here's where we started. Dr. V, you've got some crossover into this, which is great because we both kind of approached this on our own separately.
Right.
But I did start with the genetic predispositions, right? Because that's what the biggest concern was. There are a few different ones. There's the MED12 mutations, the HMGA2, and there's one called FH. That's one that's associated with Reed. Now, I just want to point out, first of all, we've said this many times before, I think, right? Genes may load the gun, but environmental choices and everything else is what actually pulls the trigger on these things. So just because you have a predisposition, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have the expression of it, because there are other things that are influencing this quite a bit.
So my challenge with genes and why I haven't gotten too deep into it really is because if genes can change, then we should be able to change genes, right?
Yes.
So
and I love that.
All along, people talking about, I have this genetic mutation. Well, it's a mutation. How did it happen in the first place? What happened? What was there? And so fortunately, and it's going to come up on this podcast a lot as I dig more into this, but in cancer as a metabolic disease, Freud, Seyfried, Seyfried, he gets into a lot of that because, talking about cancer and how things mutate like that. But ultimately, it's a mitochondrial, it's a, oxidative phosphorylation, it's a respiratory problem at its heart. And that's what causes the cells, via the mitochondria to compromise. So I'm finally finding some answer to how, we've talked about epigenetics, and that's been around for a long time, and that's trying to make the best of the genes that you have.
Right.
But I'm still, God of all possibilities, really. If the gene mutates, why can't we mutate it back?
I know, for those of you who listen to us, that's definitely going to be a repeated theme that we're going to hopefully get closer and closer to the mark to give more and more solid data about that. Because I absolutely agree with you. Because the accepted knowledge right now is that you cannot erase a genetic mutation. You cannot reverse a genetic mutation.
Mm-hmm.
And if you asked anybody out there, or even, whatever authority you talk to, they would say, yes, you cannot do that. And I say to that, well, we can't to our current knowledge, right? But I
There
think
you go.
you and I have some interesting insights that may be already challenging, right?
Yeah.
Already.
Yes, I've done searches. I mean, I'm still waiting for the double blind study of, these twins or,
Right.
something like that, that they take somebody with the genetic mutation and take care of the virus, like COVID, for example. I mean, kind of getting a little political there, but I mean, COVID inhibits methylation, and that's a lot of why we're seeing, cancers accelerate and be on the rise even more so than ever before. But COVID under methylates or causes a hypomethylation, which ultimately is going to cause epigenetic problems and set the stage for all this. So it took us on a little bit of a tangent. We're trying to stay on track with fibroids, but again, just kind of set the theme for a lot of what's going to come through this podcast as we help, hopefully, create some answers, help people know what these triggers are. And really, ultimately, it's about giving hope, right?
Right.
Right. That you're not
Absolutely.
duped because you have this, gene defect and you're just going to die because you have these fibroids or you have these problems. What can
Right.
you do about it? It's ultimately what we want to do. So sorry,
Exactly.
let's get back to your slide, to your
Well, yeah.
great
So
slide there.
yeah, let's walk through these one at a time. Let's go through number 2 on the checklist is hormonal environment. I mean, estrogen metabolism is hugely going to be impacting this for sure. Even progesterone signaling, thyroid function, and iodine status. I mean, I think I believe if I'm looking at Joseph Antel's protocols on fibroids, I think he starts with iodine, prolamine iodine. And
Okay.
so I do think when we're looking at any condition, yes, you may have a specific gene that's for that. But if you're part of a massive percentage of the population that is egregiously low on an essential nutrient, well, you can at least get an essential nutrient back into your body more and see how that impacts your life, right? The expression.
Right.
For sure. I mean, there's a huge correlation there between iodine, thyroid function, and estrogen metabolism.
Well, and a
Correct?
very similar manifestation is lipomas, which is iodine metabolism, correct?
Yes.
So here we
Yes.
go again.
Right. So if I'm thinking iodine and iodine metabolism for you standard process practitioners listening, I am thinking any iodine product, right? Prolamine iodine plus, trace minerals, B12, organically bound minerals, seaweed, seafood, sardines, but
Iodomir.
iodomir, yeah, there's many. Minchex even has iodine, Mintran.
Yeah.
But to metabolize the iodine, we forget that we have to have the vitamin E components.
There you go.
And I often talk about wheat germ oil being one of those really important things. So if you're dumping tons of iodine in, but you don't have the ability to metabolize it, well, you're gonna have a situation where somebody's gonna convince you that iodine is bad for the body, or you're allergic to iodine because you didn't have the vitamin E to help metabolize it. So
Selenium. So
right.
Cataplex E has the selenium in there, which helps with iodine conversion in the thyroid and all, keeping the blood thin and flowing, on, and detox.
Yes.
So yes, beautiful products that we've discussed there.
So there's a whole world that we could talk about just in the hormonal environment, right? That is a major contributing factor. But let's move on to cellular communication. And this is the one that I think was something that maybe other people aren't putting in their thought process when they have fibroids. But these nutrients, as it says here, influence how the cells receive and send the signals. So they help regulate the cell growth, calcium signaling, which is really huge in this, and insulin sensitivity, which you're going to talk about a little bit, right? Key in fibroid biology. But here's the piece that I don't think people really know enough about is vitamin D. I put vitamin D on the list here because, and I mentioned it to you, and you fired back, some thoughts on correlative aspect
As
of it.
controversial as I am.
Yeah, of course, and I love it. But so women with fibroids are consistently more likely to be D deficient. Now, that could be lifestyle, right? It could be all of those things. But fibroid cells do have vitamin D receptors. Vitamin D does slow down abnormal cell proliferation. Vitamin D promotes apoptosis, and it does actually reduce fibroids. That's what most people don't realize. It reduces inflammation, but also specifically that, and it influences estrogen signaling, going back to the first or the last one. But I just want to point out, just to drive this point home, to make sure that people do include vitamin D in the conversation about fibroids, that there were very impressive animal studies, several animal studies that demonstrated that vitamin D supplementation can reduce the fibroid size, it can slow new fibroid growth, decrease the collagen deposition. I mean, all kinds of great things in the animal studies, but even some encouraging human studies as well, that women with lower vitamin D levels consistently had higher fibroid prevalence, larger fibroids, greater fibroid volume. So if you're going to take nothing else away from this talk, if you're somebody who's concerned that you have a genetic mutation that's going to increase your risk of fibroids, pay attention to your vitamin D at the very least. Is that a fair statement, Dr. V? Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, especially if you're mostly looking at it from the genetic predisposition, then D rises to the top of what we want to look at, for sure. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Thank you for validating me. I basically do this every week for validation.
Once in a while. Yes, indeed.
So inositol and magnesium are two, I think, that are commonly missing from many people's lives, and we could go on and on about those as well. But just to keep us moving along here, metabolic health and insulin resistance. So there's been a theme through all three of the first ones that have to do with the balance of hormones and insulin. And then you have a whole slide about this, correct? A whole story about insulin resistance and
yes.
fibroids. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yes.
So stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
We're going to get to that. But yeah, metabolic dysfunction. And this is one of those things that is not as easily actionable for people out there, right, who are struggling with this, because there are a lot of things that you can do and need to do to be metabolically healthy. And I get that. And maybe some people aren't going to do all of those. But what I did try to break it down is focus on omega-3, your omega-3 intake as well. And there are many things that you may want to include just to help a little bit with insulin resistance. If you can't entirely change your lifestyle to support your metabolic health, that doesn't mean there aren't little things that you can still do to influence that.
Right.
Jump on in here anytime.
Yeah. Well, I'm just the body compositions on there. It just frustrates me when literature always says body composition. Obesity is the cause. It's like, duh. It's all the stuff we just talked about that causes obesity.
Right.
So obesity is still a symptom. Obesity is not a cause. Just again getting on my little soapbox there.
No, I agree. Yeah, because that does take away the lesson, right? Like you said, you want to learn from the pain. Learn from what's going off in the body, and you need to learn from the obesity that it is a result of all of these things, as you're saying.
Even the location of weight gain, it makes it tells a story.
Yes.
If it's lower abdominal, we're going to talk about colon health. If it's in the hips, and ladies, in fact, if you got junk in the trunk, sorry, that's a sign of estrogen dominance. You likely have painful periods, likely have fibroids. That's the physical manifestation of long-term insulin triggering hormonal imbalances, estrogen dominance.
As fashionable as it is these days, it's still a sign of estrogen dominance.
I was going to throw a star under the bus, but
that's all right. We'll leave them out of the conversation right now. Moving on to point 5, I do want to point out that fibroids fibroids do contain abundant collagen. I think that's interesting because so many people are trying to take collagen and do everything they can make collagen, but that's what the fibroids are mostly made out of, right? Extracellular matrix and collagen. And so the nutrients that I'm lining here up are the nutrients that support healthy connective tissue remodeling and help prevent excess fibrotic tissue formation. So again, vitamin D comes back into that conversation. We're also going to talk about vitamin C into that. So again, if you are struggling with fibroids, look at your vitamin C intake. Make sure you're eating, fruits and vegetables that are going to provide that, because humans cannot make their own vitamin C, right? Unlike a lot of animals, we have to get it from an external source. Copper is one that I would look at as well. Silica, which we talked a lot about. And which podcast was that about silica? Hair, skin, and nails, right? Make sure you get sense. And glycine again. Yeah. So we talked a lot about those.
Glycine is often compromised by glyphosate, wouldn't you know?
Very interesting, right? So you get all these people taking a glycine supplement, which is not what we're advocating for. We're advocating for getting all of your essential amino acids in there, getting full protein digested. I
Bone
did
broth
not.
again.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly.
Mhm.
But glyphosate is going to inhibit that. Is that so?
Yeah, it binds up, binds up where glycine should be. So that's where some of the side effects come from.
Wow. Okay. So
Mhm.
many people out there buying glycine supplements and getting these results would probably do well to just examine whether or not they're having an overexposure to glyphosate. And then they
Figure out
take
where
these
it's coming
supplements.
from, right?
Yeah.
Wheat, corn, soy, oats. Start
Yeah.
there.
Wow. Yeah, and it's so easy to forget, right? That corn is almost in everything, and so is soy. Well, all of the things you just said,
Yeah.
oats.
Welcome to America.
Right, right.
In,
Yeah, bring your own
in
food.
my shirt.
My
As I'm
last two
wearing my
points.
patriotic shirt. Carry
Yeah,
on.
yeah, we got to come back to
Detoxification.
that. So my last 2 points before we let I move on to Dr. B slides here are detox and elimination. That's gonna support any condition. Removing the garbage, getting the stuff out of the way, getting the glyphosate out, right, of the body, is going to be helpful. Next week we're going to talk about more gut microbiome specifically, and check it out. Estrogen recycling is going to be a part of that as well, right? Because if you're not eliminating, if you're not getting rid of the garbage on a normal cadence, on a daily, multiple times a day cadence, that estrogen is going to build up, and likely you're going to be starting to get some junk in your trunk, as you say, Dr. B. Right.
Well,
And
and estrogen is going to dramatically affect the gut biome. It's acidic,
right.
right? It's acidifying, so it's going to shift what flora flourishes ultimately. So it's a two-way cycle, right? We need the good gut biome to make B12 to break down the estrogen, but when estrogen's high, then it's acidifying and yeast overgrows. So it's a two-way cycle, really.
Absolutely. Yes. And so, which gives you two different ways to help improve it, is what we want to keep, bringing our focus back to,
Yeah.
right? You can help get rid of the yeast. You can help balance out the hormones. Both are going to contribute to your body moving in the direction that is going to help heal it overall.
Indeed.
And so, number 7 is just oxidative stress and inflammation. And again, and my goal here is to give people multiple things that they can do to improve their health condition, the environment of their health. And I've had to put vitamin D right at the top again, right? Because that's the point that I want to come back to for a lot of people. I don't think many people thought about vitamin D when it came to fibroids previously. So I think it's worth repeating.
Good point.
And of course, sleep and physical activity and all of those things are going to be helpful in what we're doing. But the big picture here, as I said, is that fibroids are not caused by just one thing, and they will not be resolved by just one thing, right? No matter what your genetic predisposition is. So this is just a way to help give you some actionable items that you can do. Small, consistent steps do create lasting change. So if you need a roadmap, this is the first few steps that I would take somebody down if they're struggling with fibroids or concerned
Absolutely.
about fibroid
Right.
formation. So
And yep.
take it away, Dr. V. Show us what you got. Show us your view through your keyhole on all.
My little keyhole, my petty little view of the world.
I wouldn't call it petty. I mean,
Thank
we
you.
all have a great view, but they're all different. That's what my point is. Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
you have a mission. So there's the fibroids, right?
Mhm.
Um, so if you're listening while you're in the car, this is a picture of a uterus with fibroids all over it, and actually, as Dustin talked about, the hormonal imbalance ultimately comes down to that. And I propose that insulin is the uppermost hormone that's going to trigger a lot of this because insulin causes estrogen dominance. And abnormal mitochondria, as we alluded to, affects the gene pool. So, the person being exposed to toxins that compromise the mitochondria that are, doing too much sugar and things like that that are compromising the mitochondrial function, that can eventually glitch. I mean, if a virus like COVID can cause genetic mutations, then so can hormonal dietary choices. And the good news is that empowers us, right? That gives us an opportunity to make a change and to get to the cause, which we're going to end with a little testimony on how that worked out in Megan's life.
Excited
So we've
for
got
that.
inflammation. Again, the poor dietary choices are the trigger for chronic inflammation and goes on.
Yep.
Ultimately, this sets up insulin resistance because it's constantly yo-yoing. So then the insulin receptors get less sensitive and they end up with high insulin, which increases estrogen and fibroid growth ultimately.
Mhm.
And so I've had several patients where a lot of patients where I can pretty much tell how much sugar they're eating by the softball mass on their, right lower or left lower quadrant, of their abdomen there, just above or kind of right at the pelvic margin. I mean, it'll be visible. The good news is you make these changes. And people talk about months, but literally I see them go away in a week or two by making the appropriate changes.
Wow.
And
Wow.
let the cat out of the bag. Usually gymnema is one of those major changes. So we'll get there. That's next.
Well, if you're talking about excess sugar, I mean, so many people, they're aware, they know that they're eating too much sugar. Most people do at this point, finally, in history. And
Right.
they still have a slight addiction to that, maybe. We're going to talk about addictions next week, by the way.
Good segue.
Yeah, right. But this is why I think the gymnema is such a cool thought on your part, is because they do need something to help change their actual physiological reach for sugar, right? They're the things that are pushing that. So, I mean, for sugar and alcohol, I love that you've got that on there.
Mhm.
But you also you're mentioning red meat as well and xenoestrogens because of the hormones that are
Yeah,
being
because of the
used.
hormones.
Yeah.
And so that's going to be partially, which segue to the blood type thing a little bit. But I mean, ultimately, yeah, red meat for the A blood type, I would say mostly for the O blood type, red meat's actually going to be beneficial. But
Okay.
yes, be careful what hormones are being used in your red meat or to grow and fatten up,
Yeah.
fatten up your cow, right? Because they feed the
Yeah.
cows, fat.
Yep.
Royal Lee was the one, right? That said the best way to fatten a cow is feed them corn.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
So we have all of that. Um, so for sure, xenoestrogens and so on are a trigger in there. I mean, kind of the bottom line, one of the bottom lines on here is its effect on fertility.
Mm.
Let me back up a little bit. The reason, as you alluded to with gymnema, the benefit there is it helps curb some of those sugar cravings. It's
Right.
easy to, sit on our, pedestal and say stop eating sugar, you silly patient.
Right.
It's bad for you, it's going to cause you painful periods and these problems. But the compassionate approach is to figure out what's causing those sugar cravings. Why are is their thyroid low, is their energy low that's causing them to need a little pick me up, or is the insulin do we have insulin insensitivity, so it's yo-yoing and it's dipping below the line, insulin, glucose dipping below the line, and then they're craving. So even down to things like that's a lot of what sold me on the blood type diet decades ago, was that when I, as a B blood type, eat chicken, I would have had carb or sugar cravings afterwards.
Mm.
That was 20 plus years ago that I quit eating sugar because of that. Ultimately,
Yeah.
corn will do that for all four blood types. Actually,
Yeah. Yeah.
sugar feeds yeast and is going to cause carb sugar cravings afterwards. Um, but then the avoids, a lot of the dairies for most of the blood types are going to cause carb sugar cravings. So ultimately, this is a recurring conversation in my office, is that use something like the blood type diet app, and every time you feel a carb or sugar craving, figure out what you just ate that perpetuated that. So that's going
Interesting.
to give people a little more insight to empower themselves to figure out what those triggers are. So I mean, I have no carb sugar cravings. I mean, of course I quit eating sugar I don't know, 40 or 50 years ago, as crazy as that sounds, 40 plus years ago. Um, but that's, again, there's these other foods that can cause those sugar cravings for people. So learn from them so that you can
Sure.
be empowered and shrink your fibroids.
Yeah. I mean, some nights I'm sure people do. They have a craving after dinner. And I mean, I know some people they're just programmed that they need something sweet after dinner at night.
Right,
But I also know there are people that come in and say some nights I do feel this craving and the other nights it's no big deal. So look at
right,
what you ate, like you just said.
exactly.
Those can actually contribute to that sugar craving. So
Right. That's what it's all about. Learn from what our cravings are trying to tell us, just like learn from what our pains, what the pain's trying to tell us, and on
mhm.
and on. Learn the body's telling a story, ultimately. It's sending a message to
Yep.
inspire change.
Yes.
So fertility can be affected if we keep ignoring and grow these fibroids and feed these fibroids. And correcting fertility is good for business, right?
Yeah.
Keep those girls fertile, creating new patients. So we've got the long-term consequences. It could, lead to cancers, but it's not typically a cancer that these fibroids are going to be. It's more of a life consequence, if you will, or a quality of life concern. But they are
Well,
a big old sign, and there's a problem there. Go
well,
ahead.
specifically that Reed syndrome that we talked about,
Oh yeah,
the
right,
genetic
right.
one, it can increase the likelihood of kidney cancer specifically. And so kidneys are
Mm,
a big one that people that you definitely we need to spend a little more time, right? Building up our kidneys instead of tearing them down, because the kidneys
yes.
in America is not stellar at this point.
Well,
So
round and round goes the logic, right? So, I mean, the stressors that are going to, toxic metals that are going to set the kidney up for kidney cancers and so on are the same things that are going to lead to insulin insensitivity. They're going to lead to vitamin D deficiency, and
right.
so round and round goes the cycle. But again, to break the cycle, learn from the message that the body's trying to tell
Yeah, yeah,
ultimately, right? So most of you are familiar with the symptoms of uterine fibroids. It's, heavy prolonged periods, pelvic pressure, pain right over where that fibroid's going to grow, right? Bloating or fullness, feeling full, duh, because you got a big old thing growing in there.
yeah. Hmm.
So lots of girl type problems, painful during intercourse. I see kind of problems, interstitial cystitis type of similar uh, outcomes. Lower back pain, I would call it L3 low back pain, glute medius, or speaking of, we should talk about the muscle, the adductor muscles. Those groin muscles are the physical manifestations from a muscle organ correlation. The adductor muscles are related to the uterus, ladies, so you can have weakness in those muscles, and then the glute medius on the top, kind of just below the belt line, the main hip stabilizer muscle, that's going to get weak with estrogen problems or poor estrogen metabolism. And then we could talk about the bitemporal headaches. I know a
Yeah,
guy
yeah.
talking headaches.
Sure.
Guess we
You
need to
might, yeah,
include
you
that
might
in the
want to mention those.
conversation.
Well, because it says here some women have no symptoms. Well, and I would say, well, symptoms that they're connecting to this necessarily. Like
Right.
you said, a bitemporal headache could be a symptom that is associated with fibroids, right? That they're
Right.
just not picking up on, connecting it.
Yes.
But
Yes,
maybe they don't
indeed.
have any.
So some of the solutions, Jim Nema is my favorite. Talk about that a
So Gymnema
lot.
sylvestre, right? This is an herb that's been used in
Mhm.
Ayurvedic medicine for thousands of years. It's been
Mhm.
known as the sugar destroyer. So
Mhm.
this is one that there's a lot of great research in multiple countries. I know that there was research in Mexico and in Europe showing that this is. I think if this is a long-term herb, typically,
Mhm.
because they
Mhm.
have shown after 18 months of people taking a significant amount of this that they do actually get a regeneration of the beta cell function in the islets of Langerhans and the pancreas. So this is
Hope. You're offering hope.
really, yes, really. But time frame too. I want to remind people that sometimes you can't just take one gymnema and all of your fibroids are going to go away, right? Or just take it like
Yeah.
a drug. It's not something that's attacking or killing the fibroids. It's changing the environment that's causing them to form. And so
Right.
I want to put that in your mind. Even if the fibroids go away in 2 weeks, like you said, I would still suggest a longer term gymnema application just for the
Right.
continuous healing beyond that.
Keep
I
them
always
away.
say, right. I always say that I want people to take things 6 weeks beyond symptomatic relief because we want to get them just because we got them off the edge of the cliff. I don't want them standing on the edge of the cliff. I want to pull them back from the edge of the cliff. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah. Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
you got some other great suggestions down here. I'll let you get to.
Yeah, no, I mean you're on it with Gymnemas, ultimately my favorite. Green tea's has shown some benefits. So typical, as you already mentioned, balance hormones, reduce inflammation, reduce insulin signaling and sensitivity, um, protect fertility. uh, Look at, I mean, if you're on the pill, consider, making sure that that's metabolizing right. Look at other options possibly.
Right,
So lots to talk about there.
for sure.
So ultimately what happens, you eat the sugar, creates that hyperinsulinemia, which insulin receptor activation. So ultimately it's looking for sugar all the time and that creates the cravings, right? And then the sugar feeds yeast and that creates more cravings,
Mm,
sticking to the cell growth pathways happen. It activates, as you mentioned, some of the same pathways, right? The
Yep.
P3, the mTOR. So pathways that are increased they increase cell growth and survival and protein synthesis. So the protein to help make the fibroids ultimately, and the genetic conversion ultimately is kind of what's happening there, isn't it? And then the hormonal synergy fuels cell growth. So estrogen and progesterone, insulin causes estrogen dominance again, so that increases estrogen production and decreases sex hormone binding globulin, which takes some of that, should be there to take some of that stuff away. So if it's not, then we end up with more free estrogen available to feed the fibroid ultimately.
Okay.
So the fibroid grows, looks like the uterus on the right side of our chart here.
So if I'm looking at this visual, basically you're saying stop eating 3 donuts and a sugary drink for breakfast, is what you're saying.
That would be a great idea. Yes. Yes, indeed.
Okay. Go ahead. Keep going.
No, and I can, I mean, I share some of my own personal testimony about that. I mean, when I was a young teen in junior high, I would eat sugary cereal for breakfast and then go to Winchell's and get a donut on my way to school.
I mean, you love
That's what I
donuts
was
so
living
much
on.
you were going to be a police officer, right? Isn't that
Right,
how the story
because I
goes?
was about donuts. So I was looking at the donut profession. If that's you, sorry. No offense.
Yeah, no offense. Yeah.
Yes. So you can break the cycle. You can heal, right?
Mhm.
So ultimately, that's what this is about. We want you to learn from what your body's telling you, what the message is in the fibroids. And if you like learning from the message, headaches are the great message. They tell really the priority in the body. We've recorded a whole summit series on the 7 patterns of headaches that is available through the Gata Institute. So check that out. There's a QR code that you can scan to go see those. There's 7 hour plus, most of them are hour and a half, messages on each of the 7 headache triggers.
Nice.
Keep learning, stay inspired.
Right.
So here's your friend Jim Nema. This is my almost slam dunk go-to for fibroids. I don't know if you guys if you've seen, Carrie has people put a little liquid Jim Nema in their mouth and then sugar tastes disgusting. That's kind of a cool trick, right? Cool party trick. Go do that at the next birthday party. Right before the cake. Everybody, hey, take a little shot of this. And then they say, "Ooh, that's gross cake. Great. You don't need to eat it." So it's natural herbal support and balance. It'll also help with the hormones and ultimately healthy metabolism, which leads to reproductive wellness. So taking the gymnasium will help curb some of the cravings so that you're not craving the sugars that are feeding the uterine fibroids. So gymnasium is a beautiful thing. And as Dustin said, use it long term to keep those cravings away.
Yeah.
Don't do the crazy yo-yo and store. So when insulin goes up, 40% of that meal gets stored as fat. So let's think of triglycerides. Triglycerides are ultimately like cellulite. So when that's going on, and then we've talked a lot about the GLPs and the PYYs and so on, eating the good foods, the fiber and calcium and protein and so on, it's going to create what am I trying to say? Stimulate the production of GLPs in the intestine to keep those cravings down, right? Keep the food noise down, to use the current buzz term, so that we can eat proper and not feed these fibroids. It's very doable. So again, the benefits of Gymnema helps balance insulin and blood sugar, reduces estrogen dominance by doing that, and then supports healthy metabolism and weight, decreases inflammation because we're not feeding the inflammation with sugar anymore. And I've seen it reduce fibroids again in literally in 2 weeks.
Well, you got a little testimonial down here from Melissa, age 42.
I do. Yep.
Yeah. Now, do you actually have a video of her talking about this, or
I
is
don't
it
have I don't have a video, but I have this slide,
Oh,
right?
okay.
So forgive me, the video or the picture has the fibroid in a kind of a higher place, but that's trying to keep the keep the
Right.
visuals politically correct.
Right. Yep. Gotcha.
So yeah, she
YouTube
was
friendly.
this is one that my patients are all supine on the table for the most part while I'm treating.
Mhm.
I could literally see the softball poking through her jeans, if you will, and I could tell how much she'd have sugar around the house and be eating it like candy.
Yeah.
And feeding that fibroid. And so we put her back on the Gymnema. That would curb a lot of her carb sugar cravings, and the fibroid would shrink and was gone. So and she felt herself and continued to thrive. I mean, she's still around the practice, and we kind of had this dance going on for 20 years,
Wow.
on and off, as she's, behaves and doesn't. For the most part, she behaves, and she knows what to do. So
Well, and
we
Geneva
felt,
gives her that power, right? It does help
right,
make it easier for her to make the right decisions, clearly.
right.
Yeah.
So that's what we want. We want to make good, healthy decisions
Mm.
and learn from it. So, and you can too, make the choice today. Every meal, we're only as good as our last meal, right? And so choose the foods that are going to work the best for you to help you thrive and flourish. So fibroids are a consequence of poor choices. So
Mm.
shrink those fibroids and enjoy a better mood, right? The weepiness of estrogen dominance that would go along with these, the bitemporal headaches that could go along, the heavy painful periods that are potentially going to compromise your ability to function and work, on and on. The symptoms are profound. So make a good positive change.
Yeah, I mean, and the whole goal of this is that people know that they have options. They have many things that can help
Mhm.
move that needle in the other direction. Even if you do, like we said, have that genetic predisposition, that doesn't mean there aren't many things that you can do to improve that environment and stop the expression of those genes, as we
100%.
talk about. All right,
Yes.
Dr. V's got a hard stop here in 2 minutes. So thank you all for listening. We really appreciate having you here with us. We appreciate your comments. We appreciate your suggestions and questions. So please keep them coming. Put them in the comments below. Let us know what we can expand upon. Obviously, this isn't an exhaustive list of fibroids, but it's just it's a starting point. And that's what we're really trying to do, is have a conversation. And I mean, for example, I've needed to hear many times about gymnema and fibroids, because that's just not something. And because of your clinical experience on it, I got to get that to the top of my mind when it comes to that.
There you go.
So
Easy fix.
There it
Take
is.
Gymnema, reduce the sugar cravings, live long and prosper.
There it is.
Without junk in the trunk.
And there are other ways, I suppose. No, let's leave that for another time. Thanks for listening, guys. We'll see you in the next episode.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Truth or Trend, the Holistic Breakdown. If you enjoyed today's conversation, be sure to follow the podcast on Spotify so you never miss an episode. And for the full video version of each show, subscribe to @DustinStrong_life on YouTube. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and keep investing in your health.